Where is the you that feels like you? When neuroscientists went hunting for the self, scanning brains, dissecting cognition, tracing every electrical signal and synapse, they came up empty-handed. They searched for the command center, the CEO, the voice in your head that says, "I exist." But there was no throne, no operator, no master controller, just networks, just feedback loops, just an intricate dance of electricity and silence. Instead of a self, they found a void. Not a dark, empty void, but a silent, mysterious one. A kind of infinite canvas where every thought, emotion, memory, and sensation appears and disappears like waves crashing on the shore of something ancient and still. You might believe there's someone behind the curtain, some hidden puppeteer pulling the strings, but look closely and you'll see there is no curtain, only the illusion of one. No thinker behind the thought, no watcher behind the eye. This isn't another motivational video. This won't tell you to believe in yourself, because the self it speaks to doesn't actually exist. This is not about building a better identity. It's about dismantling it. This is the unraveling of you, the subtle, terrifying, liberating truth that the self you've been defending your entire life may never have been real to begin with. You sit in silence. You close your eyes, ready to go inward, ready to find something real. And then it starts. That soft, familiar voice that seems to hover just behind your thoughts. "You're doing this right," it says, or maybe, "This is pointless." Sometimes it flatters you. "Look how spiritual you've become." Other times it slices through you. "You're still broken. You'll never evolve." It offers commentary like a sports announcer describing a game that no one asked to watch. It's calm, articulate, even wise at times. And it feels separate, as if it's outside the chaos of your daily life, gently observing from a higher place. You've probably believed for most of your life that this is the observer, that subtle mental voice just beyond your conscious thoughts. But here's the unsettling truth. It isn't. That voice is not the witness. It's the imposter. It's the mind wearing a mask and calling itself God. Psychologists might call it your inner monologue. In spiritual circles, it's mistaken for awareness. But what it really is the inner commentator, a constructed persona made from everything you've absorbed. The voice of your mother when you were 5, your culture's definition of success, the slogans of self-help books, your fears, your hopes, your history. It operates in 3 distinct modes. First, the narrator. It labels your experience. You're anxious. You're growing. You're being present. Second, the critic. Brutal, unrelenting. You're failing again. That was a stupid thing to say. Third, the hype man. Overconfident and addicted to progress. You're transforming. You're waking up. It never stops. Even in your most quiet moments, it creeps in, describing the silence, analyzing the stillness, evaluating the peace. But this commentator is not some higher self. It is not consciousness. It is ego refined, intellectualized, disguised. The reason it fools so many is because it doesn't feel like your reactive, emotional mind. It feels distant, calm, separate. But calm doesn't mean true, and distance doesn't mean transcendence. This voice is just a subtler form of identification. It is still thought, still noise, still the mind talking to itself. And as long as you're listening to it, you're not observing. You're being led. The real observer doesn't speak. It doesn't guide. It doesn't say, "Well done," or "Keep going," or "You're doing great." It doesn't motivate. It doesn't judge. It simply watches. It watches you fall apart and rebuild, cry and laugh, rage and sit still. It watches your inner commentator too, sees it performing, sees it narrating, sees it pretending to be wise, but it doesn't interfere. It doesn't need to, because it already knows the truth. None of it is you. And this is the most important thing to understand. Most spiritual seekers never reach the real observer because they confuse silence with subtle speech and stillness with inner dialogue. They think listening to their inner narrator is presence. But the observer is not a narrator. It is presence itself. It doesn't talk about the river. It is the river. It doesn't interpret your thoughts. It simply watches them pass, like clouds drifting through an endless sky. It never tries to hold on, never tries to control. Just awareness. Pure, unfiltered, wordless awareness. If the inner commentator is not the observer, then what remains when every voice in your mind goes silent? When there's no one left to narrate, no one left to approve, no one left to define. What's left when you stop trying to be aware and awareness simply is? The observer is not a voice at all. It doesn't speak. It doesn't argue. It doesn't try to convince you of anything. It doesn't offer affirmations, mantras, or spiritual slogans. It does not say, "You are peace," or "You are light," or "You are one with the universe." It has no interest in poetry, no need for reassurance. It has no attachment to feeling good. It doesn't want to be seen. It just is. Silent, still watching. Unlike the inner commentator who's addicted to definition, the observer has no identity. It doesn't claim to be anything. It doesn't try to be a higher self. It doesn't say I. In fact, it doesn't even belong to you. It simply watches. It witnesses everything. Your thoughts, your emotions, your reactions, your dreams, your fears, your commentary about all of it. And it remains unchanged. It doesn't get pulled into your sadness. It doesn't get swept up in your joy. It doesn't resist your anxiety or cling to your peace. It doesn't analyze the past or plan for the future. The observer is not interested in content. It is the space in which content appears. You could scream, collapse, fall in love, lose yourself in panic or bliss, and the observer would remain completely unaffected, not cold, not distant, just untouched, like a mirror that reflects everything but holds on to nothing. And here's the most paradoxical truth of all. The observer isn't even personal. You may believe it's your observer, but if you stay with it long enough, truly sit in that deep, sacred stillness, you'll begin to sense something shocking, that this presence watching you is the same presence watching everyone, not metaphorically, literally. The same awareness witnessing your thoughts is the same awareness witnessing mine, your neighbors, a monk's in a Himalayan cave, a stranger zoning out on a train in Tokyo. What changes is the movie playing, the memories, the culture, the patterns of thought, but not the screen, not the awareness that sees it all. That never changes. There are not 7 billion observers walking around. There is only one. One awareness wearing 7 billion masks, 7 billion egos talking to themselves, but underneath all of it, just one silent witness. And that means something terrifying, something beautiful, that the person you're arguing with, the one you resent, the one you love, the one you hate, is not other. At the core of it all, at the level of pure witnessing, there is no separation. Just one light refracting into many. Just one eternal eye watching through us all. And when you recognize it not just as an idea, but as your own direct experience, you'll understand why the great mystics always spoke in riddles, why they laughed so often, and why they never seemed to take life so personally. The truth is, it was never personal. It was never about you at all. There's only this watching. Always has been. Always will be. There is a moment, often brief, when the mind goes quiet, not because you forced it to, not because you tried, but because something deeper pulls you into stillness. A breeze moves through the trees, sunlight rests on the floor, a stranger looks away, and suddenly, for no reason, you feel it. A presence, a clarity, a watching. In that moment, there's no commentary, no internal chatter, no attempt to make meaning, just raw, pure, and wordless, as though life is looking back at you. That is the universal witness. It is not yours. It is not something you own or control or improve. You cannot reach it with effort, because it's already here, already awake. It has always been awake, but you've been distracted by the noise, by the thought stream, by the inner voice narrating your existence. Like a bad documentary, you've mistaken that noise for you. But when it falls away, even for a second, something remains. Still, quiet, undeniable. And here is the radical truth. The observer is not an object inside your awareness. It is awareness itself, not yours, not mine, not personal, just awareness, consciousness, the empty stage on which all of life dances. When you begin to sense this clearly, something profound shifts. You stop asking, "Who am I?" And instead you begin to see, "I am not this person. I am not this name. I am not this story. I am the field in which the story is unfolding. The story of me is just a role played out by thoughts, memories, sensations. But the actor behind it is no one, and that no one is not empty. It is vast, infinite, connected to everything. That same space which witnesses your heartbreak is the same space that hears a child's laughter in Brazil, that sees a falling star in the Sahara, that watches a raindrop trickle down a subway window in Tokyo. It's not poetic exaggeration. It's ontological truth. The content differs. The awareness never does. You may feel like a separate self living inside your body, but where is the boundary between you and the world? Where does your consciousness end and mine begin? Where is the line between inner and outer, self and other? The more you look, the more that line dissolves until you realize there never was one. This is what the sages meant when they said, "Aham Brahma Asmi, VDJ. I am Brahman." Not figuratively, literally. You are the same witnessing presence that sees through all eyes, the same stillness beneath all motion, the same silence behind every word, one presence, one being, many faces. And when you truly realize this, not as a concept, but as an embodied truth, you stop trying to win. You stop defending your image. You stop needing to be right, because the person you're fighting with, it's still you. The awareness behind their eyes is the same as the one behind yours. This realization is not an escape from the world. It's the doorway back into it fully, honestly, intimately, because only when you stop believing in separation can you truly love. Only when you dissolve the boundaries between you and another can compassion stop being a virtue and become a reflex. There is no higher awakening than this: to see the same light in every face, to hear your own breath in every breeze, to feel in your bones that we were never apart, that we've always been looking out through the same eyes, just forgetting until now. The voice in your head is not neutral. It is not some disembodied guide gently helping you through life. It is the mouthpiece of your conditioning, formed by your upbringing, your society, your traumas, your hopes, your pain. Every word it speaks is shaped by a past you did not choose. The language it uses, the values it upholds, the things it tells you to pursue or avoid. None of that is original. It is a loop, a projection, a mirror held up to everything you've ever absorbed. And the most convincing illusion is that this voice is you. But think, where did it come from? The guilt you feel when you rest too long, the shame that whispers after a mistake, the constant judgment, praise, correction, concern. It didn't come from nowhere. It came from the world, from parents, teachers, books, media, religion, and 10,000 subtle moments. Your mind is like a sponge soaked in cultural noise, personal wounds, inherited fears. What you call thinking is often just echoes, recycled scripts, hand-me-down beliefs. Even when the voice feels spiritual, it is often still the conditioned mind wearing a new mask. You meditate, and it says, "You're finally becoming pure." You have a bad day, and it sighs, "You're not awakened yet." It speaks the language of growth, but it's still the same inner commentator, just dressed in white robes now instead of armor. Still addicted to measuring, still obsessed with progress. And it's not your fault. This is what the mind does. It processes, it narrates, it explains, it protects you by anticipating danger, by making meaning. It tries to control your life by turning experience into story. But stories aren't truth, they're interpretations. And when the mind becomes your identity, your life becomes a performance staged for an imaginary audience, judged by rules you never agreed to, driven by fears you never questioned. Sure, you're not alone. Who knows it? Even its goodness is conditioned. A kind inner voice is often just the result of positive programming, affirmations you've repeated, lessons from compassionate people. The mind becomes more pleasant, yes, but it's still the mind, still dependent on memory, still reactive, still fragile, because even the kindest thought can be shattered by one unexpected event. And then the voice turns, becomes sharp, becomes cruel. The same mind that lifted you up now tears you down. This is why freedom cannot come from mental refinement alone. You can reprogram your thinking. You can reshape your inner commentary. But the one who does the programming is still trapped, still circling the same loop. To be truly free, you must look beyond the mind entirely, beyond its language, beyond its patterns. You must find the space where thought begins and watch it rise and fall without getting caught. That space is the observer, the silent presence that sees all of this, but is not defined by any of it. It watches the voice no matter what it says. It remains regardless of your past or future. It cannot be conditioned because it was never born. It existed before your thoughts began, and it will still be here after your last breath, untouched, unmoved. The more you sit with this presence, the more you realize your mind is just weather. Sometimes calm, sometimes stormy, but you are not the weather. You are the sky, vast, empty, unaffected. The voice in your head may speak your name, recall your childhood, predict your future, but none of that is you. You are not the story. You are the awareness holding the book. Let the mind continue. Let it speak. Let it remember, plan, judge, dream, and just watch. Don't fight it. Don't follow it. Just watch. Because in the watching, you are free. Time is the illusion you've always mistaken for truth. You believe you are moving through it, aging, evolving, becoming. But have you ever stopped to ask, what is it that's witnessing all this change? What is the part of you that's never moved, never shifted, never aged? The body has changed undeniably. The face in the mirror today bears little resemblance to the one from childhood. Your preferences have changed. What you once loved, you now avoid. The things that once scared you are now just memories. Your identity, that fragile idea of who you are, has been rewritten 1,000 times. The shy child became the angry teenager, who became the seeker, the parent, the performer. But through it all, one thing remained constant: the witnessing. Think back to a moment in your childhood, a silent memory, no words. Maybe the way sunlight hit the wall in your room, the wind through an open window, the quiet awareness that was present then. Do you see? It's the same one watching now. It hasn't grown older. It hasn't changed. That silent presence watching your thoughts today is the same presence that watched the world when you were 5. It didn't gain wisdom. It didn't evolve. It simply witnessed. And it still does. That's why the observer is not just an idea. It is proof of something deeper, something eternal. It's not a spiritual fantasy. It's direct, observable experience. You don't have to believe in it. You just have to notice. Sit still. Let the noise settle. Beneath the layers of memory, beyond the inner voice, deeper than any belief, you will find it. The unchanging watcher. This is what the mystics meant when they spoke of eternity. Not a place after death, but a dimension within this very moment. Eternity is not endless time. It is absence of time. Pure presence. The observer doesn't live in the past or the future. It doesn't care about what happened or what will happen. It exists only now. In this breath, in this heartbeat, in this exact flicker of awareness as you hear these words. And the moment you shift into that presence, genuinely, deeply, you realize that everything else has been a distraction. Every regret, every hope, every internal monologue, all of it was pulling you away from the only thing that's ever been real. This quiet seeing, this subtle aliveness, this nameless I behind the noise. The mind is obsessed with time. It needs a future to chase and a past to justify itself. But the observer has no such addiction. It doesn't measure. It doesn't rush. It doesn't cling. It simply rests completely, effortlessly here. It is untouched by trauma, because trauma lives in memory. It is untouched by desire, because desire lives in the future. It is untouched by identity, because identity is a narrative told in time. But the observer is timeless. You don't become it. You remember it. You don't build it. You uncover it. It's the quiet you that's always been here, patiently waiting beneath the story of who you thought you were. The great texts whispered it all along. You are the eternal witness. You are conscious presence, not a body, not a mind, not a name, just this awareness beyond time, beyond form, beyond everything that can be lost. And when you rest here, even for a moment, the search ends, because what you were seeking was never lost to begin with. Was it all always secret? Yes. A silent awareness you've glimpsed, the one watching your thoughts without judgment, without commentary, is not new. It is not some modern mindfulness hack, nor the invention of therapy culture or productivity gurus. This presence has been known for thousands of years, and though it has gone by many names, DJ Atman, the Witness, the Self, the Tao, Pure Consciousness View DJ, it has always pointed to the same experience, not an idea, not a belief, but a direct, wordless recognition that who you are is not the voice in your head, but the space that hears it. The Upanishads, texts older than most civilizations, spoke of this as the Atman, the inner eternal self. They described it as the witness of all, beyond the body, beyond the mind, untouched by death or time. They didn't theorize about it. They sat with it for hours, days, lifetimes. They watched their minds the way you watch clouds drift across a still sky, dispassionately, patiently, until only the sky remained. The Stoics too knew this presence. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, wrote in his journal, never meant for anyone but himself, about watching his thoughts as if standing outside of them. He didn't say to control them. He said to observe them, not because he wanted power, but because he saw that the root of all suffering is identification with the body, the mind, the role, the mask, and the only escape was to step back, not away from life, but back into the seat of pure witnessing. Modern physics touches it too in its own strange language, the quantum field, the idea that what we see as form is actually energy in constant flux, shaped by observation, as if the universe only knows itself when it is being watched, as if consciousness isn't just in us, but behind all things, not caused by the brain, but foundational to reality itself. And then there are the mystics, the poets of the soul, Rumi, who said, "You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the ocean in a drop. Ramana Maharshi, who sat in stillness so complete that seekers from around the world came to feel what words could not explain. Even Christ, when stripped of dogma, spoke of dying to the self to be reborn in spirit, not as a new personality, but as the return to the unchanging essence that was never born to begin with. All of them, across cultures and centuries, spoke of this observer, the silent, changeless awareness behind the masks. They disagreed on rituals, they fought over philosophies, but on this, on the truth of the eternal witness, they were in absolute harmony. So why do we forget? Why do we dismiss what is so universally known? Because it is too close, too intimate. It's not hidden in scriptures or temples or retreats. It's here, right now, watching you read these words. And the mind, built on complexity, is allergic to simplicity. It wants steps. It wants systems. It wants to earn what is already freely given. But the observer cannot be earned. It cannot be reached because it is what you already are. You are not the character struggling through life. You are the screen it plays on. Not the wave crashing, but the ocean beneath it. This is not mysticism. This is direct experience. This is what every ancient voice whispered into the silence, that the truth of who you are is not something you become. It is something you remember, something you return to. And when you finally do, you'll see that nothing was ever missing, just forgotten. You think you know who you are, a name, a face, a story, a bundle of memories wrapped in flesh. You were born here, you did that. You like these things, you hate those. You carry regrets, you chase dreams, you wear opinions like clothes and call them personality. And yet, strip it all away, and what remains? Your identity is a story your mind has been telling you since childhood, a collage of borrowed words, absorbed beliefs, and filtered memories. It's not fixed. It's not solid. It changes with time, with mood, with the people around you. Who you were 5 years ago is not who you are today, and who you are today will not be who you are tomorrow. But the observer, it hasn't changed, not one bit. We spend our entire lives defending the idea of me. We argue to protect it, compete to prove it, curate it online, perform it in conversations. We attach to the body, the role, the trauma, the success, and yet, none of it is stable. The body ages, the role shifts, the trauma heals or reshapes, the success fades. And the more tightly we grip these things, the more we suffer when they slip through our fingers. But here's what the observer knows. They were never yours to begin with. Identity is a survival tool, an interface. It helps you navigate society, relate to others, function in the world. But it's not who you are. It's not the source. It's the costume you wear to play the game. And like any good costume, it's convincing. So convincing that most people live and die believing it's real. But the moment you begin to identify with the observer rather than the character, something cracks. The spell breaks. You start seeing your thoughts like leaves floating on a river. You start hearing your inner voice as background noise in a cafe. Your drama becomes a play. Your roles become masks. Your pain becomes data. And you, the real you, stop reacting. You start witnessing. This doesn't mean life becomes numb. It becomes clear. You can still feel joy, sadness, anger, love, but they move through you. They don't define you. You can still play your role. Be the parent, the artist, the rebel, the lover. But you know it's a role. And that knowledge is freedom. Your sense of self is a story constantly revised, a novel with no consistent narrator. One day you feel like a fraud, the next, like a genius. One moment you're confident, the next, ashamed. The mind swings between these poles, desperate to find a stable center. But there is no center in the mind, only the illusion of one, only the commentary trying to stitch the chaos together into a narrative called me. But you are not the narrative. You are the blank page it's written on. The more you rest in the observer, the more that identity softens. You no longer need to be right. You no longer need to be seen. You no longer cling to the story of your suffering or your strength. You just witness. And that witnessing, that unshakable stillness, becomes your truest self. Not because it tells you who you are, but because it frees you from needing to be anyone at all. And in that freedom, you find something extraordinary. Peace without reason, joy without object, self without self. You don't need to climb a mountain to find the observer. You don't need a guru, a mantra, or a perfect morning routine. You don't need to abandon your life, change your beliefs, or fix yourself first. The doorway is much closer, so close that the mind often overlooks it, because the mind is always looking outward, always chasing, always doing. But the observer lives in what's already here. It's not something you reach, it's something you relax into. So how do you access the observer? You don't. You notice it. Start small, right now. Become aware of your breathing. Don't change it. Don't label it. Just feel it. The rise, the fall. Now notice the thoughts in your mind, but don't follow them. Just see them, like clouds, like echoes. And then, behind the thoughts, behind the breath, behind the urge to comment, there it is. That quiet, watching. It doesn't speak. It doesn't react. It's not trying. It's simply present, open, aware. The more you return to this space, the more natural it becomes, like riding a bike, like learning a language. At first, it feels fragile, like it could slip away at any second. But that's only because you've spent your whole life identifying with the noise. The more you rest in the observer, the more the noise becomes background. The more you stop being the experience and start witnessing it, life doesn't stop happening. You just stop being controlled by it. This is not about dissociation or detachment. The observer doesn't numb you. It doesn't disconnect you. It makes everything clearer, sharper, more alive. Because when you're not lost in thought, you're actually here, present in the texture of existence. The breath, the breeze, the flicker of a candle, the subtle hum of the universe underneath all things. Animals know this, not intellectually, but instinctively. A cat watching the world from a windowsill, a dog lying in the sun, a bird sitting still in a tree. They are not thinking about being present. They are simply there. We call it simplicity, but it is grace, and we had it once too. Before the mind grew loud, before language wrapped the world in concepts, before we began to live in thoughts about life instead of in life itself, we forgot how to just watch. But we can remember, and we must, because the alternative is endless reactivity, a life spent chasing meaning while missing the moment, a life lived on autopilot, narrated by a voice that doesn't even know it's talking to itself. But in the observer, there is no chase, no clinging, no resistance, only this open, curious, wordless watching. That is the practice, not to fix, not to silence the mind, not to transcend the body, but to see, to rest in the seat of awareness and let the world come and go while you remain grounded in the stillness that has always been. The observer is not a goal, it is your natural state, and the more you rest in it, the more you realize everything else was just noise. In the end, there is nothing left to find, nothing left to grasp, no final destination, no grand insight waiting just beyond the next thought. When all the seeking dissolves, when the mind grows tired of explaining and the heart grows tired of chasing, what remains is the void. But the void is not what you think it is. It's not emptiness. It's not absence. It's not some cold, dark vacuum you fall into and disappear. No, the void is full, pregnant with stillness, saturated with presence, alive with something deeper than thought, deeper than feeling. It is not hollow. It is whole. The ancient Zen masters tried to point to this. They called it no mind, not a lack of intelligence, but the end of the inner commentator. Not unconsciousness, but pure consciousness, unfiltered, ungraspable, radiant in its silence. They said the more you try to hold it, the more it slips through your fingers. But the moment you surrender, you become it. And that surrender is terrifying to the ego because it means letting go of everything you've clung to. Your name, your history, your opinions, your pride, your pain, even your spirituality. To step into the void is to dissolve completely, and the ego believes that's death, but it's not. It's awakening. The ego dies, yes, but you do not. What remains is not the person you thought you were, but the truth you always were beneath the story. In Buddhism, they say the 4 dignities of the Buddha are walking, sitting, standing, and lying down. That's it. Not levitating, not performing miracles, just being. The ordinary infused with awareness, the sacred hidden in the simple. Because the observer doesn't need a temple or a mantra to be found. It's already here, in the way your chest rises, in the sound of your breath, in the feeling of this very moment passing through you like wind. And this is the ultimate truth. The void you fear is not the end. It is the source, the womb from which all thought, all form, all time arises. It cannot be known by the mind. It cannot be seen by the eye. It cannot be spoken in words, but it can be felt as the quiet that has always been with you. The quiet beneath every noise, the stillness beneath every storm. You've searched long enough. You've read the books. You've played the roles. You've followed the voices inside your mind like breadcrumbs through a forest. But the path doesn't lead out. It leads in. And at the center, there is no self, no destination, only the same awareness that has been watching since the very beginning. It has no name, no shape, no opinion. It simply watches. It is not yours, and yet it is you. The observer is the observed, and you were never separate to begin with.